The next half will be next week for our business model canvas deep dive into your customer discovery. Tonight we have Barbara Roberts with us, who will be doing our presentation. You should see in the chat your attachments for tonight. They were also sent to you via email. We will have the chat available. I'm working on getting the microphones available for you guys to utilize. For any questions right now, just use the chat and raise your hand. And during the webinar, we will hopefully get that working and going. We are recording, so this webinar you can come back to if you need to refresh up on your information. Without further ado, Barbara, you can share your slides.
Actually, let me just chat for a second. Before first of all, I'm so sorry for being late today. I had one of those crazy days on the Long Island Expressway. I'm sure many of you have been in that situation, so I do apologize that we're a little late. What I'm going to try to share with you today is some work on how to take your idea to actually a way that you can test it with other people. Or if you already have a company going or a business going in any way, we're going to be going over the 9 questions that absolutely every business should be asking as they come out of COVID. So I really appreciate it. Maybe in the chat, since I don't think we can do around the room introductions right now, but in the chat, if you could take a moment just to tell me whether you have a business and put in a few of the what your idea is if you are thinking of starting one as you go into this program. So greatly appreciate if you would just take a moment to put in the chat box. Do you have a business? And if you don't, if you do, what kind of business is it? And also whether you can share an idea with us that you will be working on to start a new business. Jennifer, is the chat box live? Can people do that? I hope.
The chat box is live and I'll read out anything that comes in. Right now, I'm just waiting, giving people a chance to type.
Okay. And then you're going to monitor questions for me, right, as I go along here?
Correct.
Okay.
Amazon now in the hot seat after being accused of recording customers across New York City without their permission.
Do we have any responses, or we have people who want to just be quiet today?
Right now, we're probably quiet. Oh, I see one. Carla says, I have an e-services business in the starting phase.
Okay, great. Okay, so why don't I just share a little bit about me and what I'm going to talk about, and then hopefully, I just started a business. Okay, skincare, fantastic. Okay, we can talk a little bit about when you're launching a consumer product. So we have one B2B product and we have one consumer product. So talk a little bit about that. I am also assuming, okay, launching a business coaching, spiritual healing, oh, fantastic. Oh, I love these ideas that are coming. Male skin line, fantastic. Oh, this is cool. Really good kind of companies. Okay, so that just gives me a feel that I am going to assume from just the people who responded then that all of you are in a really early stage. So I'm going to be sharing my comments today. If you just have an idea that you're beginning to work on, or if you have just the very beginning of a business, that what can you do to move forward? So let me open my slides, and these slides I will forward over to Jennifer, that they will be available. So feel free to photograph them if you like them, but please be aware that I will share these slides with everyone. I also heard that Jennifer highlighted that you could find some handouts in the chat box. If possible, I hope that you can print them out because along the way here today, I'm going to be hoping that you actually are going to be scribbling some ideas about your business in these boxes, and then really see how this can go along. Okay, so I do see we have one security company that's been around a little bit longer, but I definitely will be sure then to talk about how these questions also can help an existing business. So let me share the screen and let me make sure we're okay for this. Okay, oops, let me go back. What is this? Okay, I want to start the slide. Come on, you guys have to go up here so I can get to that. Okay, here's slideshow.
So Barbara, in the chat, it says, I'm a yoga teacher interested in opening a tea salon, vegan sandwich shop.
Okay, sounds good. Are you seeing my slides?
Yes.
Okay, it's not going into slideshow mode and I can't figure out why. So I'll leave it in this mode. It's not the best, but I don't know why it's not working to do slide share mode. So I'll try one more time. No, that button is just not working. Okay. Just to share with you a little bit about how I'm here today. I actually am an entrepreneur in residence and at both Hofstra University and Columbia Business School. And through my work at Hofstra, I have been working with all of the programs that have been helping our students and also people in our community start and grow businesses for about the last 7 or 8 years. And also at Columbia, starting in about, 15 years ago, I started teaching the first courses about how to start a business. Early last year, the New York State Empire Development Corp, through Hofstra, asked me to develop a whole new curriculum for all of the entrepreneur assistance centers like you're attending today on how to really use something known as the business model canvas to start a business. So the core of this presentation is going to be around the business model canvas, but let me just catch you up on some of the background and some things before I do it. Now, one of my absolute mantras of the business model canvas is that you really have to think, I believe, about your absolute purpose. I believe that every single person on this call today was put on the planet for a unique reason. There is something that you are put here to do. And I very much like to open with the idea that learning about entrepreneurship and actually starting something that you're driven to start is really just an amazing way to manifest your purpose. So I always like to share my mission so you get a little bit of sense about me and where I'm coming from. So what I do is I ask myself 2 questions every morning. The first question is I ask, what can I do today to help women get their fair share of the political and economic pie? I actually have been asking this question since 2nd grade. In 2nd grade, I was the tallest person in my class, and it came time to carry the American flag into the auditorium for our Friday assembly. And as the tallest person, I just assumed I'd be carrying the flag, but was told that only boys could carry the flag. So in 2nd grade, I did do my first sit-down strike until girls could carry the American flag. And since then, I've been trying to do something every day to move that opportunity for all of us. So I saw that a number of women had already chimed in with their ideas. So it's super to know that we do have some women on the call. But about 15 years ago, after the last crazy meltdown like we had this week in 2008, of course, we had the last meltdown on banks and craziness. And coming out of that, I realized that the second thing I wanted to do every day was help someone start a business, start a company, innovate, but particularly I wanted to be able to do that so that it would be sure to create new jobs and new wealth. So I am very honored to be speaking with you today because I hope that with this seminar, it will be answering those 2 questions to me. And I really, really hope that by the end of this hour or hour and a half, you will have a pretty clear idea of how to push your idea forward and what are the next steps. So a little bit more about my background. First life, I worked on Wall Street. Unfortunately, because of that, I really understand what's been happening the last few days, which I think it's kind of settled down and we're under control. My second career, I built and sold a couple of companies. And in the last 10 years, I've been speaking, writing, and teaching about entrepreneurship. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, Barbara Roberts, Hofstra, Columbia, you can find 4 or 5 white papers and talks and all sorts of things that I like to share with you on starting or building a business. So one of the things actually, it's interesting, I did these slides 2 weeks ago. Certainly we're coming out of even a tiny bit of crisis in the last couple of days. But one thing that I was stressing 2 weeks ago, and again, we'll stress again, is I ran companies during 9/11 and the last economic meltdown in 2008. And when COVID came, people started asking me to do webinars about how do you start a company? How do you run a company during times of crisis? And very quickly, I came to realize that we were in what I called a time of chaos. It is very, very different, and it still is, that when we recovered from 9/11 or the 2008 economic crisis. Everything has been disruptive. Every person's life on this planet had to rethink, had to learn how to innovate. And in fact, everyone became an entrepreneur in my mind. And I think it's really exciting for all of you to be thinking about that you want to start a company, because absolutely no one has the answers right now. Everything has to be done differently. And so I really would hope to begin this call today with really encouraging you to take some chances, get started, because it really is a time of incredible opportunity. So who is an entrepreneur? Who do you want to be if you're starting a company? And one of the key messages that I'm going to come back to a few times in this talk is the idea that to be successful as an entrepreneur or a business owner in this time, you have to be obsessively in love with the problem you want to solve. You can't be married to a solution. You can't be married to your first idea of how you're going to start a company. And I just maybe to take a moment to think about that. What is the problem that you are trying to solve? If you put aside your idea of what exactly you want to do, what is it that you really want to fix, make better? Start thinking about who has that problem. And we'll be walking through this a little bit deeper to really kind of help you understand that obsession with the problem you want to solve, the obsession with the person who has the problem, and then showing them this model of your kind of thoughts of what you want to do, and talking to those people to get input is really the way to start a company without wasting a ton of time and money. Having the person with the problem involved with your company and your startup as early as possible is really important. I saw a couple of you had said that you were interested in skincare. Well, it's very, very important for you to be testing and showing and sharing with people what you're doing. You want to have those testimonials that the smell, the feel of it is what is going to go over with people. If you are thinking about having a unique feature of a product or something about it, you want to talk to people to make sure that idea really matters. And particularly when you get into designing your packaging, the name of your skincare line, you really want to be talking to people to get input to make the best decisions. So my kind of tips about an entrepreneur is that we actually are driven to make our own opportunities. That is what I believe is the motivation for all of you on this call today, that you want to start something that you are going to be in charge of. You may be tired of working for other people. This may be just something that you had to do, but it's about that you are making your own opportunity. I also will share with you that I've written about cases and stories covering about 100 entrepreneurs. And it may surprise you that I have never met a successful entrepreneur that's driven by money. Successful entrepreneurs are obsessed with their customer, obsessed with the problem, obsessed with improving their solutions to that problem, innovating and rethinking what they want to do. They also have a huge bias to action, to just try something. And the other thing that I just really would like to stress is that the words perfection and failure are totally irrelevant. I often do workshops, particularly for women who are interested in starting their companies. And I've come to realize that one of the things that holds some women back is this absolute need to do everything perfectly. And I just wanted to stress that if you are starting something for the first time, or if you are the first person to do something, you can't be perfect. You can't do something new perfectly the first time. And it also means that you cannot have an attitude that you're failing if something doesn't go the right way. Your attitude has to be that failure is fantastic, that you're learning from it, that is giving you the idea of what you should go forward. And then you'll also see this note here, which I say, follow the Cult of Done Manifesto by Bree Pettis. This is something that you can Google very easily online. It's a one-page poster or 8x12 piece of paper that you can print out. And it actually has about the 14 rules of just getting things done and being creative and trying something. And I often think that it's fun just to print this out and put it over your desk or put it in your bathroom in the morning so you can be inspired just to work on what you want to create and really have the attitude that the purpose of starting this business is to start it, not to just keep thinking about it, but actually do something to get it done. So the other thing, last thing that I kind of want to talk is a basic idea to begin with is also people often are afraid of the word innovation. And I just always like to stress that innovation, people don't pull new ideas just totally out of their head without any other environment being behind them. If you think about innovation, it is that you are putting together existing things or existing ways that people are doing things in a new way. Again, a really critical idea to just think about for a second, that you, when you're starting a company, what you are doing is you are trying to put together existing things, existing processes in a new way. And that way is totally unique to you and the way that you want to approach the problem. No one else can do things exactly the way you do it. I always like to talk about restaurants. I mean, how many restaurants are there in the world? All of those restaurants have the same purpose of supplying food and having people pay for it. At the end of the day, their ultimate purpose is just feeding people. But you have never had the same experience of any restaurant that you've gone into. Even if you go to a McDonald's that is supposed to be exactly the same, the people who are in that restaurant make the experience. And every McDonald's, every restaurant that you deal with is this idea that they're putting together existing things in process in a new way. And that's totally the reflection of the people who are uniquely doing that. So again, what I shared with you is what we're going to be talking about in a few minutes is the business model canvas. This concept started in all of the major universities like Columbia, Harvard, and Stanford about 15 years ago. So what I am sharing with you in the next hour or so is actually a course that MBA students at Stanford, Columbia, Harvard, many other institutions are paying, hundreds of thousands of dollars to take. And it is a really simple, easy way. And again, it's really, I'm so happy to be able to share the concepts of this with you and all of the other EAC centers here in New York State. Now, the business model canvas is different than the old way. Even entrepreneur assistance centers, if you had possibly been involved with this center 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, I would bet that one of the requirements was to write a 20 to 40 page business plan about what you wanted to do. The process was that the one person kind of sat in a room and typed and wrote, and it was just their own idea. And about 15 years ago, universities began to realize that no 40-page business plan ever turned out. I don't think I yet to find an example of any company anywhere that really looks like what one person wrote at a business school. And so this kind of led us to thinking that we really should have a whole different process for startups. We should not be asking you to spend the next 6 months writing 40 pages about what you want to do. We should be giving you a very simple way that you actually can test 9 simple questions and actually get some input by talking it to other people. And then possibly within 2 to 3 weeks, you can get some comfort that what you want to do actually will have a customer, that what you are thinking of designing or what you're thinking your skincare line is going to cover, that there actually is proof through these interviews that you're on the right trail. So the things that I'm going to talk about, again, they come out of MIT, Stanford, and whatever. Some people also call it design thinking. Google uses this process whenever they start something new at Google. There's startup weekends all over Long Island where you can spend a weekend starting a company, and we use these principles. And again, they are taught in the schools. The 3 kind of words that you have to get a little comfortable with is business model canvas, minimal viable product, and customer discovery. So business model canvas, I'm going to show you today. It's like a 1-page sheet that is a canvas. It has 9 questions on it. And it's the idea that you scribble the answers to these 9 questions, and you are creating yourself a canvas to start and grow your business. The word minimal viable product is the idea that after you scribble what you want to do, you show it to a number of people, then you're ready to design your first real process. So if you're doing if you're doing like an app, it would mean that you'd be ready to like design your actual wireframes of how the app would work. If you're launching a consumer product, it would mean minimal viable product was, if you're a skincare company, that you would create your first batch of your product. You might also create the drawings of the packaging for it to do. That is what we call the minimal viable product. It's getting to something concrete that then shows someone what you really want to do. And then the third idea, which we will be talking a lot about in my next session next week, is customer discovery. And this is the process that I've been talking about, where you go out and you talk to people. in that process of asking people if they like your idea and if they have any thoughts on how you could do it better, 9 times out of 10, you are going to find at least one potential customer for that, for your product. So the purpose of doing this, of like designing what you want to do, also while you're talking to people, the purpose is that you should also be able to find a customer. So again, what is this about? It focuses on the problem, not the solution. 2, we're going to try to help you do half of this business canvas, model canvas tonight. And we absolutely hope that you spend time and fill out these 9 questions before our session next week. And then next week, we will do the other half of the canvas, and we will start developing the questions that we want to go out and test people with. As you can see, it's a fast process. It's going to also be flexible. If we start hearing from potential customers that the way we want to do things absolutely doesn't work for them, and we come up with a whole new idea of how we should do that, we are willing to change what we are planning. We also believe that collaborating with your customers and getting many diverse opinions on what you want to do will greatly enhance the product that you're developing. Again, customer first and foremost, and all of this means that you are going to have to go out and talk live to people somewhere about your idea, and the idea that you get out of the building. You talk to people in your school, you talk to people in your church, you go into a Starbucks and you start talking to people there. You go to a Best Buy, you can start talking to people there. You can go to a Sephora and start talking to people as they're buying their skincare. It's the idea that you get out of the building and kind of talk to people about what you want to do so you can capture great ideas on how you can improve it. So again, why you do this is these are also the questions that anyone is going to want to know about your company. And again, it's simple, you're going to flexible, shareable, and changeable, and speedy. A quick acknowledgement to the author of these canvas. This was created by Alexander Osterwalder, I would think actually about 20 years ago. And one of the things, again, that are really in the background of this is the secret of starting a great business is less time on searching for the answers and more on asking the right questions. So let me just pause there for a second, Jennifer, and see if anyone had any questions on anything that I've covered before I actually get into the business model canvas.
I don't have any questions right now, but I will wait and see if any come across.
Okay, I'm going to take a drink of water here. Okay, so again, how do you start a business? You become obsessed by the problem, you imagine a solution, you identify who has the problem, you talk to those people to find the answers to the 9 questions, and then you listen to what they say, go back and change what you're doing, and probably do 1 or 2 more rounds again. So step 1 is to actually write down the problem you want to solve. And I will pause in a few minutes to give you a few seconds to do this. So I hope all of you do have a pencil handy and a piece of paper. I will stop for a few seconds in a few minutes if you want to go get one. In fact, I'll stop right now just for a few seconds if anyone wants to be sure that they print out the handouts that we sent. And if you haven't printed them out, if you could try to find a pencil and a piece of paper, that would be terrific. Okay, so what is the problem you want to solve? I've heard the examples of skincare companies, so I probably will stay on that kind of theme for a while. So what exactly is the problem you want to solve? If you think about it, some skincare products are for dry skin, some are for older skin, some are for exfoliating, some are to make you kind of refreshed after a hard day. So thinking about what is the exact problem you want to solve, reversing kind of thinking about your solution, writing down what is the problem. It's also good at this time to think about what is the pain that you are trying to fix for your customer. What is it that they may not like about what's out there already? And also to think about whether you are creating something that's a vitamin or a painkiller. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that you can create a company or a business that actually is preventing pain, preventing something bad happening to your customer, or you could create a business that actually is preventing something. So again, going back to skincare, some skincare very much focus on if you use me all the day, all the time, you aren't going to get wrinkles or you are not going to get acne. Another kind of skincare actually would be the other side. Okay, you have acne, you have incredibly dry skin, you have a ton of wrinkles, I'm going to fix it. Now, what typically happens is that people will pay more when they have the pain and you're offering a solution. So it's just a way to kind of think about exactly what problem you want to solve. And again, even as we're talking about skincare, I'm hoping you're beginning to see that focusing on exactly the problem that you want to solve, what is the real pain that you want to prevent, and particularly, is your solution going to be a vitamin preventing the pain, or is it a painkiller that makes the pain go away? So now the next thing to do before you start the business model canvas is to write down your proposed solution. How are you going to solve the problem? So let me just stop here for a few minutes. If you want to take just a few minutes, just to scribble, what is the problem you want to solve? And how are you thinking you are going to solve it better for people? What exactly is your solution, and how will it solve this problem better than anything that's out there right now? Again, if you have trouble or want to ask a question, just put a chat in the chat box, and I know Jennifer will relay it to me.
If you want, you do have the ability to unmute now. So if you want to unmute and talk about anything with Barbara, you are able to do that. So we don't have video, but we do have sound for all our participants.
Okay. Well, let's keep going, and then maybe we'll get, it will shake as we continue, get some more inspiration here. Okay, so again, we've written down, you're on a piece of paper, you wrote down your problem, you started to write a description of your solution, and again, cleaning it up, spending a little time, making it as precise as possible is really a good idea. And now it's time to start thinking about the 9 questions that we need to ask to move it forward. Okay, so this is the business model canvas. if you go to the handouts that were in the chat box, you will, I believe they put 2 versions of this. These are the big questions that we will be asking in each box. I'm going to quickly go through these just to give you a sense of how this fits together. And then what we're going to be doing over the rest of our time tonight is we'll be spending time on the right-hand side of the canvas, or those 4 questions in the value proposition on the right-hand side. Next week, we will come back and do the 4 boxes on the left, and I also will do some conversation about how you do customer discovery, what kind of questions, how do you find people to talk to, what kind of questions, how do you start a conversation, what kind of questions should you be asking when you take your idea out into the world. So today I'm going to do a quick overview of these 9 questions in a few seconds, and then we're going to work on the 5 boxes on the right-hand side. Okay, so I always suggest that you scribble the problem on the back of this piece of paper. Okay, again, going back to the handout. So you should have, I think, 4 pieces of paper there. These are the big questions. These are the sort of the essence of what we're trying to get to. You also have a blank canvas attached to this handout. And then you will also find that you have another copy of the business model canvas that actually has more detailed questions written in every box. Those detailed questions in every box mirror the slides and the points that I am going to make today. So if you look at those, the copy of the business model canvas, which has a lot of questions in each box, you will discover that those are going to be very similar to those that I bring up in this PowerPoint. Okay, so we printed, the first thing is you want to print this out. This is not something that you should be doing online. However, the one version of with all the questions, I believe, is a Word document. So it's possible for you to type in the answers in that version. But what you don't want to show this to someone on a computer. You actually want to print out the, you want to do a printout, I believe, so you scribble things in. You can actually do it with pencil, erase things, change your mind. And then you want to have a piece of paper that you're actually showing. So what are these 9 boxes? We wrote down the problem already. We begin to figure out how we're going to solve the problem. And so the first box we then want to go to is what we call the value proposition. I'm going to be spending a lot of time on this tonight, but that basically is how is your solution different than anyone else's in the world? Actually, at the end of the day, it's a simple statement of what do you guarantee to someone if they buy your service or your product. So we're going to come back and spend quite some time on that box in a few minutes. I then suggest that you go to the box all the way over on the right. Who do you help? So you have the problem, you have the solution. You've written down what is going to be your unique features. What are you going to guarantee your product or service does that no one else? Now, the next big thing is to really think about who do you help? And we're going to spend time again tonight going into thinking about how do we describe this person. And we'll talk about that the more detailed you can describe your ideal customer, the more information and the easier it's going to be for you to do customer service, customer discovery. The third box is how do you interact? This is basically what kind of relationship do you want? Do you want an online relationship, or do you want to have a live experience? The fourth box is how do you reach them? We'll spend a lot of time on that tonight, and that is how would you find your customer? How would they find you? How would you get your product to them? We'll walk you through 4 or 5 questions that you have to think about if you're going to start a business. Again, going to skincare, you've got a lot of steps there before finding a customer and getting that skincare product out to them. And then the final box there is how much will you make? I actually like to reword that. It's actually how, I think a better question at this stage is how will you make money? Are you going to actually sell it, rent it, et cetera? I'll give you some more ideas. So those are the 5 questions that I'm going to spend some time on in the next few minutes. And I know that the counselors and coaches at your center also can help you when you get stuck on these and go further. The left-hand side we'll do tomorrow. I'm sorry, next week. And I usually start with what are the key activities. This is the idea of really identifying what do you have to do if you're going to guarantee your skincare product is the best for for preventing wrinkles. What exactly do you have to be sure that you do to be able to have that guarantee? Next box will be what resources do you need? And we'll talk about that next month and next week. And then strategic partners. I will spend a lot of time next week on this. Who are the people who can help you? If you're a startup, this is something that I love about the business model canvas that I don't think too many startups really think consciously about. And it's really conscious thinking of who could help you, who could do things that you need to get done for free, who is going after the same customer you are that potentially you can market together. And then after you begin to have a sense of what you really want to do, you can begin to think about what it's going to cost you to get this business started, or what is going to cost you to grow it and take it from to a minimal viable product and then to a real product. So let's go to those let's start with our boxes. So the first box is, the most important one, and that really is to think hard about what exactly are you doing that's different from anyone else who's doing your service. What is your unique or better or different solution? One of my programs at Hofstra, we primarily work with construction people. And I love one of the people in our program is a plumber. And I'm blown away of all the ways that this person makes his plumbing business different. One thing that he does is that he guarantees if he's called to your home or business for a plumbing emergency, he guarantees that before he leaves, he's going to show you how to shut off the water in your house. So if you have another emergency, you know how to shut it off so the damage is as little as possible. I don't know about you, but I've never had a plumber who made it a point to show me how do I shut off all the valves in under a sink or the main valve to my house. I had to really very specifically ask the plumber to do that for me. Another thing he did was he has to obviously get supplies from a plumbing company. He went to the warehouse and he realized that the guys and women who worked in this warehouse were being paid minimum wage. There was no heat in this warehouse. So he actually created sweatshirts and beanies with his logo on it and gave them to every person in that warehouse. Now, what this means is when he shows up and there's a shortage of copper or there's a shortage of a plumbing part, these people put that aside and save it for him. So these are the kind of things that I'm suggesting to you that you should be thinking about that's really going to differentiate yourself. It's going to be a unique solution. It's going to be something that you are going to be known for, and it's going to be something you will guarantee. Another thing I like to talk about to help with this idea is when you go into a hardware store and you think you're buying a drill, think about it for a second. What are you really buying? What you really are buying is a hole in the wall. That is what you're buying. But if you think about it a little further, you potentially could start a business where you were creating a drill that might be comfortable for a woman who didn't know much about how to put a nail in a wall and wanted just a simple drill so that when she wanted to hang pictures, that it potentially was lighter, that maybe even pink and maybe a different color. So it's this idea that you really want to think about what you're selling. Obviously, if you're creating a drill for a woman, it's an emotional value that you're creating. You're making that woman feel independent. You're making her confident, perhaps more that she should try it. She might just really like this lighter drill. So it's this idea that if you start obsessed about the problem, obsessed about who has this problem, and obsessed about what are the features, what are the things that are going to be unique to your solution. Now, one of my favorite things to new kind of research that I recently found is there's a company called Bain and Company, BAIN and Company. And what they did is they identified 40 values that you could have if you're a business that's selling to another business. So I think I saw that there were a few e-services or some software companies that popped up in the chat box. If you think about it, your beginning thing, if you're selling your services to another business, is you're going to think about level one. You're just going to figure out whether you're offering the right price, whether you're offering the right specifications, whether you are doing an ethical business, and whether if you're an electrician or a software person, whether you're compliant with regulation. That's level one. That kind of gets you in the door. But you also have to start thinking about adding value by using words that you improve performance and that you cut costs. So again, when you're building that value box, you should be thinking about these level 2 to 5 words. How can you improve performance? How can you cut costs? Is this something you want your product or service to do? This again can be a differentiator, it can be a brand. Another kind of theme is the ease of doing business with you, the ease of working with you, and also doing customization. I mean, again, there are some skincare companies now that are asking you to fill out 10 questions about your skin and your habits and whatever, and they are offering a custom kind of package of skincare based on your answers to questions. This again is a differentiator, it's a branding, it's the idea that it's easier to find the right product for your face. So think about this. Is one of the values that you want to create in your business that you're simplifying things, that you're cutting the risks of something going wrong with your customer? Are you building a community? Is one of the benefits of working with you that you are part of an online social group, or maybe part of your businesses, you do have live events and invite people to come again. So again, going back to skincare, maybe you're like an Avon products company where you are going to actually have parties and demonstrate your skincare. This is the idea that you're creating value and differentiator by building a company. saving time is a big benefit. If you can say that what you're offering saves people time, that's going to create you value. If you say that you're always available, value. If you say you're a less hassle to deal with, value. Even a nicer person, that you always or service, you're always there. These kind of words are part of your thinking right from the beginning of how you are going to differentiate what you do versus everyone else. The next level is you have to think about, well, how you really help the person, particularly if you're selling business to business, you are selling to a company, but you are more selling to the person. So taking some time, if there's something that you can say or do that's going to help that person you're selling to. Could you help their career? Could you introduce them to other people? Is using your product going to build their reputation? Is using your product going to make sure that they look good to their boss? Is it going to cause them less anxiety? Are you fun to work with? That can be a brand. They're just known as the fun person to be solving this. And then the highest level, which is always kind of a good thing to think about, is what is the inspirational value that you could have as part of your brand? What is the purpose or vision of your customer? Again, going back, maybe going to skincare, if your customer, I think I saw someone was offering a man's skincare line, this is inspiration and aspirational. You imagine your whole thing is to help a man look much better, and possibly then even imply that they'll be more attractive to someone they want to be more attractive to. So this idea of we're thinking about what is that inspirational thing that would cause someone to buy your product. I mean, cars do this beautifully. So many cars, it's not about the car, it's about sort of the image of what you want to look like, what you want to aspire to. And then of course, you also can always use social responsibility. If you're starting a company, and right from the beginning, you say 10% of your profits are going to human trafficking or animal rescue or something else, that's another way that you are creating value and differentiating yourself from someone else. And then again, if you're selling to a customer, this would be rather than a business, this would be more from perhaps the skincare people. The first level is the function. Is it save time or money? Is it simplify? Does it reduce risk? Is it a good, clean product? Do you test on animals? I mean, these are the kind of things that would be there. The second level, when you're selling a consumer product, is you want to promote wellness, having fun, easy access, reduced anxiety, rewards, nostalgia, motivation, but also I like that customization thing that this product in some way is created just for you. And then when you're selling for a customer, really being aware of what that person wants as their self-image. And also, again, maybe appealing to their instinct to do good in the world. Again, that would be when you might talk about that you don't test on animals. That just makes people feel good, buying your product. So my point here is that when people are thinking about starting a company, they kind of just, I think, stay in these lower levels. The real secret of getting a customer and getting an identity, getting a brand, getting a guarantee is thinking about value in this broader way. Let me take a breath here and see if anyone has any questions on value. I'm also going to take a couple seconds here to think about your product and maybe write down some ideas of how you're going to differentiate yourself on these kind of things: function, emotional, life-changing, ease of doing business. What kind of things are you not thinking about that you actually could, really stress more when you're thinking about how you're going to talk about your product. Okay, now we're on box 2. Jennifer, do we take breaks? I just want to know what the culture was here. Do you want me just to go for like 90 minutes or so, or did you want to take a break at some time?
However, you're more comfortable.
It's up to you guys. What do you usually do?
Normally we go through, ask questions as we go along, and then leave some time at the end for some more questions.
Okay, great. So just keep going.
Awesome.
Okay, so now we're in box 2. This is the time you really think about your customer. So who would be the first customer for your products? And really taking some time to describe your absolute ideal customer. I mean, in details. I'm talking about if it's a consumer product, you're to describe how old they are, whether it's an urban or a city, is it an urban or a rural customer? Do you want to particularly market to women or people of color? What's the age of the person? What's the income level? Are they educated? Are they very active? What kind of could be their hobbies? What kind of, do they have children? Are they religious? I mean, what really describing who is a description of your very first customer. I really suggest that you actually even put a name, do this, that you really name the person, and also maybe go to a magazine and try to find a photograph of someone that kind of is a symbol of exactly who your ideal customer is or who your first customer would be. This again is going to help you get clarity on when you're doing customer discovery of who really can help you with your business. That's the main part of do it. Now, if you're selling to a business, then of course you have to be thinking about what kind of business it is, the size of the business, what is the geography that you would cover. So you think about the business first, and then you would spend some time thinking about the actual people you have to talk to get the sale. Do you think it's just one person? Do you think it may be a group of people? If it's in healthcare and you're doing something new for healthcare, you have the patient, you have perhaps their parents or caretakers or siblings or whatever. You've got potentially a nurse, you've got potentially insurance companies you got to talk to, you have doctors, you have the hospital administration, you may have the regulatory people, you may have the CFO of the hospital to approve the purchase. So thinking about all of the people who are involved that you have to identify and have some connections to if you're selling into a business or a government agency or a healthcare or maybe a university. Okay, let's stop for a second to have you write for a few seconds about your ideal customer. Who is your first customer? Consumer, you want to describe Bill, or you want to describe Rachel. If it's a business, you want to describe the kind of company, the geography, and exactly what are the job titles that you can imagine of the people that you have to talk to, and to be sure that you are developing something that is useful to that business. Okay, so now we're in box 3. This is the customer relationship. How do you want to interact with your customer? So again, the first question is, are you a painkiller or a vitamin? But the second question is, do you want to be efficient? transactional, or do you want to be more loving and building a community? I like to compare the kind of relationship you have with a gas station attendant versus a bartender in your or a waitress in your favorite restaurant. Very different kind of relationship. What do you want to have? But then I also would add that I have a gas station that I actually go slightly out of my way, and I know they're slightly more expensive because I hate self-serve. So I love that I have this person who, he knows my name, he has a great smile, that he actually pumps my gas with cheeriness whenever I need it. So it's this idea of you can differentiate yourself by having a different kind of relationship than potentially your other competitors. Big issue, of course, is whether this is going to be a lot on personal service, or are you trying to set something up that someone just really kind of navigates themselves through your website or your sales process? Are you building a community? Can you imagine that you're going to have a newsletter or meetups or something to have a different kind of relationship with your customer? And again, now the big question for everyone is, are you building a live business or online? Is it something that you would be selling to, like a skincare a dermatologist, or is it something that you're selling online exclusively? Are you trying to sell into CVS or some of the higher or department store? These are all of the questions that you have to kind of think about, of what kind of customer relationship you want. This one usually is pretty easy, so I'll give you just a few seconds to think, just to clarify, what do you imagine is going to be your relationship with your customer? Okay, so the channels, these questions are probably the ones that, when you're a startup, that really kind of get you a little bit kind of dismayed and whatever. I also would share that many times people think that this process that I'm suggesting, that you write things down and you share your idea, that someone is going to steal it, that this is a really silly idea, that I have this great idea, and why am I going around sharing it with someone? What if it's a great idea, someone's going to steal it? I just really want to stress that an idea does not make a business. And I again want to stress that nobody solves a problem the same way. It's absolutely, you again go back to restaurants. Every restaurant has a totally different way that they are delivering food to your plate, or actually to your mouth if you're doing takeout, right? Okay, so these are the questions that really start taking an idea to a business. You have to think about each of these and how you're going to handle it before you begin to see exactly what resources you need, exactly what your costs are going to be, exactly who your strategic partners could be, and exactly what are the key activities that you have to do to make each of these things happen. So the first question is, how do you find customers? One of the easy ways of, you're in a community college, so certainly you have a almost captured community there. So certainly the possibility of finding customers right with a table in a lounge area, or joining clubs there, or at some sports event, or some marketing an entertainment event, that is a logical way on how you find customers. If you're not there at college very often, but one of your communities may be a church, or going to a gym, or going to your children's school, those are all communities that are ways to find customers. So those are kind of live suggestions. But of course, another way to find customers is online. And I would share that all of you, starting tomorrow, should really be thinking about your social media connections. In my experience, the more social media connections that someone has, the easier it is to launch a company, because you can send messages so easily to those companies. Some of the biggest consumer startups of like selling shoes or skincare products or apparel that I've helped start come out of Hofstra and Columbia, those students typically had about 5,000 social media connections. So I just want to throw that out as a tip, that to really be trying to raise your social media presence, and certainly accepting any invitations to have people come into your communities. How do they find you? Well, this is the question, whether or not, again, you're going to be in social media, or are you going to hand out flyers? Are you going to go to trade association meetings? Are you going to go to conferences? How are they going to find you? You have to give some thought to that. So how exactly do you sell to them? Are you going to sell online? Are you going to have a booth at a food truck place? Are you going to have a table in the lounge at Suffolk County College? How are you going to sell to them? Are you going to maybe ask someone to give you some shelf space in their store? These are the kind of things that you have to think about when you want to start a business. So how do you fulfill orders? If you are selling, making a product, you have to think about how you're going to manufacture it. You have all the packaging questions that you have to work out. You have to figure out whether you need a warehouse, or you're putting it in your garage. Is it going to take up half of your living room? How are you going to sell to them? If it's online, then it's thinking about exactly what your computer website should look like, and possibly even thinking about whether you need an upgrade with your computer to really make it easier for you to be able to fulfill orders. You also, of course, have to think about how you're going to collect money. If you're selling online, you may want to go into some websites like Etsy or Amazon, where they actually make that piece easy for you. How do you deliver a product? Are you going to deliver it with bicycle messengers? Are you going to have to ship it? Are you going to deliver it yourself? Thinking about how are you going to get that product or service to your customer. And then most important is to give some thought of how are you going to follow up? How are you going to find out from day one with selling your very first product, real input on whether or not the person liked it, what are their ideas on improvement, and really you kind of have to be humble and be willing to listen to their ideas. Now, obviously, not every person's idea on the planet is a good one. So you do have to have your own judgment whether it makes sense to you, but certainly taking a moment to listen and think about any ideas that come your way, in my experience, is a way to greatly improve your product. It's also time to think about how you're going to sell more to that person. It's much easier to keep a customer than go out and have all the effort of all these steps to try to get a new one. So right from the very first customer, trying to find, be sure you have emails, be sure you know as much about them as you possibly can. Even sending an email thank you note, starting a relationship with them is certainly a way that you will get traction and build your business. So think about this for a few seconds. How are you going to find customers? How will they find you? How will you sell your product or service to them? How will you fulfill orders? How will you deliver your product or service? And what kind of follow-up and surveys are you going to do to check everything went okay? And then also, how are you going to build a community and connect with them so that you clearly have them back for another purchase? Let me take a minute and think about those for a second. Okay, box 5. This is just a simple idea, is how will you make money? In my experience, I think I've captured all the ways you can make money. You can sell it outright. Of course, you have to think about what your pricing is going to be, but that kind of is something that has to happen after you build all your costs. But I also will talk about next week, when you're doing your customer discovery interviews, you also want to get a sense and ask people how much they would pay for your product and service, so you get a sense of what people would be willing to pay. So you can sell it, you could have a usage fee. If it's an online service, it can be a subscription model. You can rent something like rent the runway. You can have a brokerage fee like they do when you sell a house. You can license your product, that's typical for software. If your business is to like start a blog or start some sort of service where you're giving information perhaps on diabetes or something like that, you could make money by getting advertising from perhaps some of the drug companies that offer solutions to the problem, but advertising is another solution. Sponsorship is another solution, that going to a business or a company and asking them to give you money to sponsor an event or sponsor some initiative with you is a way to make money. And then later on, the possibility of franchising your business is also there. But of course, that is only after the stage of having everything perfect. And the idea that you are actually selling your process to another person and then get ongoing money from when that person makes money. So think about, how do you think you're going to make money? Okay, so we have ended our first 5 boxes. So let me just go to the end, because there's a few resources here. The rest of the boxes in this PowerPoint I will cover next week. But let's go to the end. And okay, these are my resources. Oops, there we go. Okay, so I will just even now share with you that if I or actually even suggest, in the next 24 hours, that you Google business model canvas for your industry. There are a ton of business model canvases out in the universe for daycare centers, dog care centers. I'm sure there's one for a skincare line, business model canvas for a restaurant. So one thing that I do urge you to do before you even spend too much on your own is to go out and Google business model canvas. I actually have a collection of business model canvases that I've put together, so I will send those to Jennifer so she can share them with the group. Maybe there'll be some there that they'll be interested in. Steve Blank is the person who created the business model canvas way of starting a business. If you go to steveblank.com, you will find pages and pages and pages of resources. He teaches a semester course in the business model canvas at both Stanford and Columbia. And if you go to his website, you can watch his course that Columbia and Stanford people pay $100,000 to take. Amazing resources are there. I already mentioned Bree Pettis, the Cult of Done Manifesto. Traction is a book by a man by the name of Gino Wickman. For those of you who have existing businesses It is my favorite book on how to really organize, keeping records, making goals, being sure you're hiring the right people is my absolute favorite simple tips for how to build a great culture and build a company that really just works well, that everyone is aligned, that you're on top of how you're hiring people, how you're doing things, very consistent with the business model canvas. It stresses a great deal this idea that you have to focus on how you're unique, what you're guaranteeing. And then Neil Patel, the 26 resources for customer discovery, that'll be for next week. And then lastly, if any of you would like to read more of my work or connect with me on LinkedIn, that's the direct connect, or you can Google, you can search on LinkedIn, Barbara Roberts, Columbia or Hofstra, and you will find me. So let me stop sharing my slide, Jennifer. And is there any, do we have any questions? I see we have 11 chats there. So do we have questions?
Right now we do not at this moment. If anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and unmute. The floor is open for discussion to answer anything that you may need clarity on.
Are you stuck on anything, or do you want to share any kind of ideas on your problem and your solution?
Barbara?
Yep.
I'm the skincare person, and
Okay.
I just wanted to ask you, what do you feel, or what is your idea if you want to do something like, maybe it's taking on too much too fast, but if you wanted to do something like e-commerce, as well as selling to, like, for example, selling to the government,
Yeah.
as well as selling to maybe a small, maybe not somebody as big as, say, Target, but somebody very small, while you get yourself up and running. Is it too much to take on all three? Or
Do you have, tell me what stage you're at. What is your name, please?
Tina?
Tell me the stage. Do you actually have a skincare that you've manufactured and that you have packaging for? And have you had any sales at all yet?
I have a manufacturer here on the island who has given me a sample of the product that I want to sell. And I gave him some suggestions of what I was looking for, as well as ingredients, and he put that together for me. And so then I thought, well, because of my background, I have a lot of experience selling to the government, that I could push that to maybe, for example, VA hospitals. And then also I thought maybe doing e-commerce would work as well, because these larger companies want you to have experience, not necessarily doing e-commerce, but experience before you go to them and say, okay, well, I can sell you, 1,000 product, or I need you to order 1,000 units at a time.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, should I focus on just one area, or can I branch out?
Well, I would say, well, tell me what's unique about this, and why would why would a veterans hospital want this skincare?
The hospitals and the nursing homes would benefit from it, because first of all, it's a 70% aloe vera based product. And a lot of the lotions and skincare products out there don't, even the aloe vera ones don't use 70% aloe in their ingredients. And it's also light. It's not very, very heavy. A lot of skincare products are very heavy, with an oily base, as well as with a scent. Well, mine is not heavy with a scent. It's not heavy with an oil base, but it's very refreshing. And so I was going to promote the refreshing part of it.
Okay. And then what's the minimum order that you would have to make once you start production?
Once I start production, I would need to order 2,000 at a time. So a large company or a large client, that would be perfect for the government. And it may even work with e-commerce, but I'm also have a backup. just in case, I don't have 1,000 or I'm sorry, 2,000 units at a time to order. I have a backup, so I don't have to order as many.
Okay, okay. First off, the sales cycle to go into a government agency like can be, you have to,
Long.
do you have a contact with somebody? Do you know the exact person? Do you have a special contact of somebody that you know who would?
I have two. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. One in Buffalo and one in Rochester. And
Okay.
this is going through the federal government.
But do you know these people personally?
Not personally, I'm building a rapport, a relationship
Okay.
with them now.
So, okay, so this is customer discovery, Tina. This is part of it. I would have these conversations with those two people. You have to give them samples and, get some get some feedback of what it would take for them to be comfortable buying it from you.
Okay.
That's right. Okay. And then, yeah. The other, consumer products like skincare, more typically get started with like Kickstarter campaigns or GoFundMe that you can have people prepay for this, but then you have to kind of really do some, a website, or you have to do some video kind of ad to make people feel like this is something that they want to get. So if you have connections in the vet hospital, that's part of the process. Is you should be bringing them a sample, and they're the only people that can tell you whether that's worth your time or you're wasting it.
Okay.
Right?
Very good.
Does that make sense to you?
Definitely. Thank you.
And the other thing I would do is, really being clear of what they're using now and why and how you're different.
Okay, I do have that set up, that they will get the information on. They're using a very generic product. It's
Okay.
not, mine is better. And once I'm able
Yeah.
to sell it to them, I can sell it to them why aloe would be better than
Okay,
say.
and then what's the price? Is this more expensive than the other or the same price?
It's the same price because my
That's great.
manufacturer,
Yeah.
yes, I can get it for so low
Yeah.
from my manufacturer that I can sell it for what Walmart is selling it for, or what even the government's willing to pay and still make money.
That's that's what we're talking about. It's like you have this idea. How are you going to decide what's worth your time and effort? And my main point today is I can't answer that question. All I can do is help you kind of figure out who you're going to go talk to get, information that's going to help you decide whether that's worth your time. Right.
Right.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome, Tina. Anyone else want to throw anything out at me?
If you have not yet, just real quick, registered for next week's session, part 2, I did just put that link in the chat.
Jennifer, will we be able to have video next week by any chance?
I will work on that.
Okay, well, okay, because I'd love to hear more about what people are doing, and I'm hoping that all of you will take time to fill out those 5 boxes on the right. And so next week, what I'd like to do at the beginning, if you would like, is I'd love to hear some of how you're filling in some of those boxes, and certainly help anyone who's having trouble. And then I'll be going over the 4 boxes on the left, and then I also will be helping you think about what I just talked about with Tina. What kind of people should you be talking to? What kind of questions should you be asking them to test your idea? So Jennifer, yep.
I have one question. When you talk about the 5 questions to the right and the 4 to the left, I don't know if I've been looking at the wrong thing, but I don't seem to have that particular what you're talking about. I have 2 slides, but they don't have the 5 to the right and what you were talking about. So I was following what you were saying, but just by your, what you were showing.
Okay, it should, Jennifer, can you help me on this? What did you send to people? Okay, can you share a screen of what you sent?
Yes, I will. I will share the
It's,
one.
it's
you
the
talking about.
business model canvas with the definitions of what the 9 things were, and then I
Okay, so
have,
yeah, see, do you have this? That's one of the handouts. Okay,
Mhm.
then go to the second page of that handout, Jennifer. And see, that's your blank box. Okay, so basically what I'm suggesting is you take this blank one and you start filling out the value proposition question, the customer segment question over to the right there, Jen, thank you. The customer relationship up on the top, the channels.
Okay,
And the
okay,
revenue.
because
That's what I mean by the right 5 boxes.
yeah, because I was looking like for the, okay, I wasn't seeing like the 5 on the right and the, okay,
Yeah, are
all
you
right,
okay
because-
now? Is it,
a
do you see
little
what-
better, because it looked like what you were showing, it had more definitions in those blue bubbles.
Yeah, those are my added thoughts on it. Okay, so do
Okay.
you have the other version? Did you share with them, Jennifer, the other version of the business model canvas I sent you today?
Let me grab that right now. I'm grabbing these straight from the chat just so
Okay,
everybody can see what I sent.
thank you. Great.
Oh, I'm not sharing anymore. Haha, give me 1 second. There we go. When it decides to load, there we go.
Okay, so this is the version that has more of the questions that are consistent with what was in my slides.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that? Okay,
Yes.
so these just help you, but and then if you go to the second slide on this one, Jen, that's also a blank one. Okay, so basically what I did is I gave you 2 versions of the questions that I've been talking about, and then I'm just hoping that you will use the blank second sheets on one of these 2 handouts to scribble in your answers. Okay.
Okay.
Do we have any more questions from anybody? Give it another minute. Natalia said, thank you for your expertise, and she's looking forward to next week.
Thank you, Natalia. Okay,
All right, since we don't have any other questions, I want to thank you, Barbara, for coming in and sharing your time with everybody. And I hope to see everybody here next week. Same time, 7 p.m., same link. Just, make sure you register so that we can send you reminders and resend you these attachments. Okay, so I want to thank you for coming out and wish you a very good night.
Thank you.
good night, everybody.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Good
week.
night.
Okay. Thanks, Jen.
You're
See you
welcome.
next week.
See you next week. I will be sending out the PowerPoint that Barbara sends me.